Pablo, good to see you. How you been? How's things, Pablo? First one in today. Let's go. You're normally the first one in. JP, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? Evening. How you been? Evening, Miles. How's things? Optic, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? How's things with you? With me, everything's been good. Yeah, so far everything's been good. How's things with you? Okay, let me pin the live show on X. There we go. Pin to your profile. Okay. So, by the time everyone tunes in, let's do the intro, disclaimer, and what we're going to go through on tonight's live. Mixture news to go through essentially on tonight's live. We have very good Ripple news to go through on tonight's live. Also, very good SEC news to go through on tonight's live as well. Good evening, Professor Miles and the team. Let's go, Funky Brother. Good to see you, Aiden. How you been? Hello, Miles, the CMF family members. Scott, good to see you, brother. How you doing? How you been? So, welcome to the CMF Live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, the CMF stands for Crypto Miles Family. My name is Miles. If you tune to this live for the first time, CMF stands for Crypto Miles Family. And in this live, essentially, I always talk about the most recent news that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrency, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time onwards, where essentially and we also do Q&As on this live. Is one, the disclaimer of this live is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. Now, I just want to say also thank you so much to everybody who is tuning in right now, right at the beginning of the live, who has already liked the live and retweeted this live on X. So far, 5 likes and 1 retweet on X. Thanks much to everyone from the CMF who has already liked and retweeted this. If you're watching us on X, if you haven't CMF members liked or retweeted this live, please like, please retweet. And if you watch us on YouTube, also like, just like the live and put a comment outside the live also. Now, on tonight's live is a mixture of news to go through. We have SEC news to go through on tonight's live, which is actually very good SEC news based on what the White House report that essentially recently came out, which was yesterday. We also have essentially very good Ripple news to go through on tonight's live, which is a bit more later on. We have banking news to go through on tonight's live, XRP news to go through on tonight's live, XLM news to go through on tonight's live. We haven't talked about XLM for a while because there hasn't been any sort of major news around it, but now there is. We're going to talk about Solana on tonight's live also. We're going to talk about some numbers, some data points, some figures, and some announcements and some regulation news to go through on tonight's live. So, before we go for the first news, let's just go inside the comment section once more, and then we go straight into the SEC news on tonight's live. Scott, let's go. Things are good. Thanks. Let's go. Autistic. Hello, Miles. Rocky, good to see you. How you've been? XRP, let's go. JP, howdy. Paul, howdy. How you doing? Even Miles and family. Susie, good to see you. How you doing? Perfect timing because we're about to go for the first news on tonight's live, which is the SEC. So yesterday, we had the White House crypto reports come out regarding essentially what the roadmap is going to be moving ahead. The White House made it very clear that to any essentially governmental body out there, including the SEC or CFTC, to stop throwing hurdles for the crypto space and so on. Well, today the SEC has announced a very interesting plan to move forward. It seems like the SEC was working on something essentially to make things essentially move forward much more smoother regarding the applicants that are piling up on ETFs or essentially any other crypto related topics. So the SEC's Project Crypto is essentially what they're calling it right now. Financial markets move on chain. The SEC is going to be very heavily focused on tokenization because they're saying it's a very big market space moving forward, especially now that Wall Street and Silicon Valley Chairman Paul S. Atkins has launched Project Crypto at America's first policy institute. At the American Institute, signal a significant regulatory shift to bring U.S. financial markets on chain. Project Crypto represents a substantial policy change, easing crypto asset classifications and potentially reshaping essentially the DeFi economy. with major cryptocurrencies poised for increased integration and growth. The SEC launches Project Crypto to integrate digital assets into US financial markets. Aiming for regulatory essential innovation and clarity, this initiative is expected to modernize the US financial infrastructure, offering streamlined regulations and increased institutional adoption of digital assets. The US Securities Exchange Commission, SEC, announced essentially Project Crypto, marking a significant shift in regulatory policies to integrate digital assets as much as they can further into the financial. This initiative essentially was revealed today, aimed at the modernizing and the existing of infrastructure. The SEC also announced new initiatives and updates, press release essentially today as well. Paul S. Atkins, SEC chairman, spearheads the project with a focus on regulatory modernization and clear token classification, which is what we needed essentially, our crypto projects, essentially securities or commodities. This approach addresses past confusions regarding crypto asset statuses in financial systems, hurdling a new chapter of domestic innovation. In his own words, Paul Atkins essentially said, "We have never essentially been content to follow. We will not watch from the sidelines. We will lead, we will build, and we will ensure that the next chapter of the financial innovation is written right here in the United States of America." Project Crypto offers streamlined disclosure requirements, potentially essentially enhancing capital formations for startups. The Federal Housing Finance Agency will now accept crypto assets as collateral in mortgage applications also, indicating a growing institutional adoption within the financial sector. Now, we talked about mortgages regarding cryptocurrencies beforehand for the past few days as well. Senator Cynthia Luminous is the one that's pushing the new Mortgage Act of essentially 21st century forward for cryptocurrencies to be used in mortgages, lending and borrowing. The SEC is also talking about lending, borrowing and mortgages when it comes to cryptocurrencies as well. Expected outcomes include enhanced clarity, use for cryptocurrencies, users as these assets gain essentially prominence. Regulatory updates may influence the broader DeFi ecosystem, fostering new guidelines for stablecoins and governance essentially tokens. The SEC's speech on digital finance revolution by Commissioner Paul S. Atkins. So it seems like the SEC has been working on something on the sidelines, and now they're essentially mentioning that they don't want to be sitting on the sidelines anymore, and they want to build inside the US. They want to bring innovation back to the US and on chain is essentially what they're saying. So does this mean that the SEC is ready to, for example, drop the Ripple case? By the looks of it, yes. Because after this very, very big, bold speech that comes just one day after the White House report, and a lot of people thought inside the crypto space on X, a lot of people on X thought that the White House report was nothing. It was nothing special. But look at what the White House report did. The White House report came out yesterday. Today, the SEC has already got their act together, whereby essentially creating on something called Project Crypto, moving forward for essentially they want to build inside the United States, bring innovation inside the United States, and so much more to the United States and so on. You can see that the White House report essentially telling the SEC and CFTC or any other organization out there to stop throwing hurdles is working. Because straight after that speech yesterday, today, the SEC is getting their act together. Now, and also after that speech, they really can't go back essentially on the Ripple situation. So they have to drop the Ripple case now. The SEC with this massive, big, bold speech of bringing innovation and we want to build and we want to move forward and we don't want to sit on the sidelines. They have no choice but to drop the Ripple case now going forward until essentially the deadline comes up August 15th, because if they continue forward, then what the hell was this big speech about? So they have no choice because of this bold speech to, drop these cases while they're at it, essentially. Now, Philippines is what we're going to talk about next. But before we talk about the Philippines, let's go inside the comment section first, and I'll tell you why we're going to be talking about the Philippines straight after we go through the comment section. Let's see where we're at. Hello, Miles of CMF. Covetous, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Semper, even Miles of CMF, good to see you as well. How you doing, Semper? How you been? Hello, family. Let's go, Scott. Happy Pisces. Good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles of CMF. Let's go, Orphan. How you doing? How you been? Oh, Ross Scott. Let's go, Semper. And what up, Miles of CMF? Ray, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? How you been? Share the live. Let's go, Scott. Morning, Miles of CMF. Shelly, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Now, perfect timing, Shelly, because we're about to go for the next news on tonight's live, which is Philippines. if you're wondering to yourself, why am I sharing you news from the Philippines? And you might be someone that doesn't live inside the Philippines. Well, sometimes things that essentially get implemented within other essentially countries outside of your own jurisdictions, it could also be something that could be coming to you. So here's the thing. Right now, the world, especially inside the United Kingdom, and even in the US, and even in the EU, they're getting a bit more strict when it comes to the online world, and everything's slowly becoming digital, where certain things now require ID checks. For example, we get essentially, Spotify requires ID checks, for example, now to show that you're over 18. Certain websites now require essentially, passport checks. Xbox users need passport checks and so on. And it's not just inside the UK. I mean, X, essentially Reddit, even YouTube slowly is going to be asking you for your passports to get you onto YouTube. So everything is becoming a lot more strict inside the digital world, and data is essentially what we're heading into towards right now. So something that's happening inside the Philippines is that the Philippines government now can track their users and verify government spending on Polygon is what they're using. So also for people that thought, Polygon might not be going anywhere because no one's heard about a Polygon for the longest time. Well, the Philippines government sees Polygon as a viable asset, so here it is. The Filipino government said it has launched a blockchain-based system that records public spending documents on Polygon's network. The system is regarded as a landmark movement, essentially inside the country's digital governance efforts, making it one of the first governments in Asia to embrace public blockchain infrastructure for financial transparency. A lot of people also said that essentially governments or banks or institutions a long time ago inside the crypto space, people said that they wouldn't use public blockchains essentially because the longest time people have been chiming, banks and institutions and governments will be using the XRP ledger. And there's been a lot of people inside the crypto space that said, no, they won't. They will never use the XRP ledger because it's public and so on. But, things like this make those people look stupid. So, unveiled by the Department of Budget and Management, essentially DBM, in partnership with local blockchain firm, essentially BYC, and essentially deployed via the Lemon, essentially blockchain as a service platform, the system inscribes essentially key budget documents on the public, essentially ledger of Polygon, enabling citizens to verify and monitor their flow of government funds in real time. The initiative is designed to make transactions easier to trace, reduce document fraud, and rebuild public trust in how taxpayer money is spent. The Filipino government is showing essentially their retail section, how their tax money is being spent, because they can track their tax money essentially on the Polygon network in the Philippines. At the core of the initiative is an integrated architecture that connects DBM's internal action document releasing system to a blockchain essentially giveaway built by BYC using Luminant. The gateway converts essentially internal budget documents such as special omits and release orders and notices of cash allocations into blockchain ready essentially formats. These digitalized records are then essentially filtered through Prismo's protocol, which determines which information should remain internal and which can be made public. Once essentially approved, selected records are published to the Polygon essentially blockchain network through the portal essentially blockchain of essentially anyone, including the journalists, auditors, and ordinary citizens can look up essentially these budgets. Now, documents using essentially document numbers or QR codes of blockchain essentially ensures that once published, records cannot be deleted or altered within leaving a visible trace. It's brilliant. The idea of governments using blockchain technology to make their work a lot more transparent is actually a great idea, because everybody wants to know where their tax money is being spent. And with this current systems we have in every country, we don't know where our tax money is being sent to or where it's being spent. Is even being spent in the country or not. But with a public blockchain showing where your tax money is going, I think it's a brilliant idea. And I think other countries should adapt to what the Philippines government has just created. The Philippines essentially joins a growing list of countries experimenting with blockchain for public administration. But a few have gone as far as anchoring essentially budgetary records on public chains like Polygon. This approach essentially addresses long-standing governance challenges essentially in the Philippines, from missing essentially records to unexplained fund allocations. By releasing financial documents on-chain, DBM eliminates the risk of data tampering, international loss, or unauthorized edits. Your taxes are essentially a responsibility, said Paul, the technical lead and essentially CEO of BYC. This system helps make sure they are used properly. Philippines essentially government budget is now essentially notarized on-chain on Polygon. Polygon Labs said in a statement posted to X, adding that the initiative provides essentially a record that anyone can verify. Maria of essentially from DBM framed the project as part of a push to protect institutions from digital threats in an era of AI-generated misinformation and deepfakes. Essentially, she also said that the government must adapt tools that can generate the integrity of public records and restore confidence in official narratives. While the current system covers only SOROs and NCAs, future plans essentially include expanding the platform to more contracts, inventory management, and real-time auditing. Officials say that the goal is to build a government infrastructure that is transparent by default and accountable at every step, responsive to the needs of its people. I think it's a brilliant idea. The idea essentially of governments becoming more transparent, showing you where your tax money is being spent, isn't an idea that's going to be working for the longest time. Probably not. I think somewhere down the line, when everybody's pretty much fully into a digital world, they're going to, slow down the transparency from the government side. Let's just be honest with ourselves. We don't live in a world where transparency, freedom of speech, and human rights actually exist. We live in a world where all of that is just a complete an illusion, essentially, that's been set for us. So on those bases, honestly, brilliant idea for now. Is it going to stay around? Probably not. I'll give it 10 years, and then the Philippines starts closing its doors on transparency. Because by 2027, everybody's going to be fully into a digital world. Regarding all the banks that are closing down, they're fully their branches by 2027. Now, the International Monetary Fund is also a good play to get people into a digital world, but the government says we will show you transparency and you show us transparency. Is also the card that the Philippines are playing right now. And other governments might adapt to this similar idea as well. So, for example, the UK government or the American government can go, we will show you transparency with where your tax money goes, and then you show us transparency. And then somewhere down the line, they'll just cut the transparency from one side, and then it will just be you who's just sharing data with them. If you essentially catch my drift. Now, the International Monetary Fund is what we're going to talk about next. So before we talk about the International Monetary Fund, let's go start the comment section first, and then we go straight to the next news. Morning, Miles and CMF. Good to see you as well. How you doing, John? Yeah, Blood Entertainment. Good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, sir. Marius. Good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Long time. Good evening, Miles and family. Lena. Good to see you as well. How you doing, Lena? How you been? Hi, Miles and CMF family. Good to see you guys. Let's go for facts news. Thanks to Miles. Let's go, Carl. How you doing? Paul, thank you so much for the $10 donation. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for the $10 donation. Hi, Miles and CMF. George, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? It is a brilliant idea, though. It always essentially starts off like a good idea. Yeah, I agree 100%. Miles, as a part of diversifying my portfolio, do you think it's a good idea to invest in Ethereum, Ava, Snort, Tron, Glover Finance, crypto? No. It's too late for Ethereum to invest into it. No financial advice at all. The idea that Ethereum can reach $10,000 per token it's viable. 100%, I can see that happening. I can definitely see, somewhere down the line, not overnight at all, but somewhere down the line, I could see, Ethereum reaching high numbers somewhere down the line. I could also see Ava reaching essentially high numbers down the line. Snort, I have no idea which one that one is. And Tron, I could see it reaching high numbers since essentially Tron Foundations went public as an IPO. Glover Finance, I don't know what that one is either. But here's what I would say. The money that you could put into Ethereum, for the same amount, you could put into XRP and get more based on quantity, and XRP will do higher numbers in the long term. Same goes essentially if you put the money in XLM or if you put the money in XDC or HBAR. So I don't see the point of going for Ethereum at this particular stage unless you have a substantial amount of money and you want to put in Ethereum, but then it still wouldn't make sense because XRP will go a lot more longer. Now, Miles, it's either my internet or yours. You keep freezing. Am I keep freezing? Can everybody see me clearly? Am I freezing? Can everybody hear me and see me? Can everybody hear me and see me? Is it freezing a lot? Yes or no? Can everybody hear me and see me? Okay here. Okay. It's okay for Susie. It must be mine. Okay. Now, International Monetary Fund. Maybe. Or it could be from my end as well. It could be a restream as well. International Monetary Fund says Bitcoin remains off the books. Apparently, it's no freezing. It's 32 Celsius here, as well as, so we wouldn't allow that. We don't allow that. Good over here. Let's go, Ray. Thanks, Miles. Obviously not financial advice. Let's go, Carl. UK internet is so rubbish. Yeah, I agree. It's glitchy slightly. Okay. Thank you, Shelly, for that. I can see you perfectly. Let's go, Carl. Okay. Now, International Monetary Fund. It seems like the International Monetary Fund has came forward and said that maybe they can't track the essentially market capitalization of Bitcoin or any other asset out there. They're saying it's off the books. So here it is. The International Monetary Fund has noted that Bitcoin, the leading cryptocurrency by market capitalization, remains mostly off the books, despite using as much as essentially electricity as Argentina. The International Monetary Fund has called that the 2008 was the last time when countries actually standardized how to measure their economies, but this was before the advent of various disruptive technologies. The system of the national accounts of 2025, the new essentially international statistical essentially standards, has introduced clear guidelines on topics such as digitalization. The major update was a green light earlier this year by the United Nations Statistical Commission in collaboration with various other organizations, including the International Monetary Fund. Notably, digital assets are included in their latest update. Bitcoin was launched after the release of a previous iteration. Until now, it had been ignored despite a significant economic impact stemming from massive amounts of energy required by the proof of work consensus algorithm. Bitcoin was not contended as a part of an economic activity since the cryptocurrency was not producing goods and services. From now on, crypto assets will be included in the national essentially wealth based on the newly released SNA standard. Apart from that, crypto, the update essentially will also take into account some other essentially disruptive technologies such as artificial intelligence, e-commerce, cloud computing, and so on. The updated essentially standard is expected to be implemented by the end of the decade. The International Monetary Fund has essentially urged policymakers to work towards implementing the new standard. Essentially, the International Monetary Fund and essentially the United Nations are now essentially recognizing cryptocurrencies on their own documentations, according to the news report that's just come out. They see it as a viable essentially tool. In the past, they didn't, so essentially they didn't include it in any sort of reportings. Now they're seeing it as a viable asset going forward. It's brilliant news coming from their side. Now, also, what we're going to talk about next is a brilliant crypto project, an amazing crypto project that we haven't talked about for a while, which is XLM, which is also a crypto project that a lot of people essentially have asked me questions about, essentially on the live show. You know, do you have any news on XLM? Do you have any news on XLM? Because we never get news that much on XLM anymore until today. So, Stellar XLM gets a very big push as Visa adds it to its stablecoin network. Visa, essentially one of the world's biggest payment companies, has officially added the Stellar XLM network to its blockchain settlement system. The system gives Stellar more attention and importance in digital finance space. This essentially places Stellar in the same group as the top players in blockchain technology, like Ethereum and Solana and Avalanche, already integrated into Visa's platform. This essentially development marks a big achievement for Stellar's project and its long-term goals. Today, Visa announced that it has upgraded its system to support stablecoin payments on 4 major blockchains. These blockchains are Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, and now Stellar XLM. This means that companies using Visa's platform can now send and settle payments using stablecoins directly on the Stellar network. Visa's platform now also supports 4 stablecoins backed by US dollar and the euros. These stablecoins are PYUSD, which is PayPal stablecoin, Global Dollar USDG, and Circle's Euro-backed EuroC, among others. By adding support for Stellar, Visa now lets its users settle payments directly on the Stellar blockchain using essentially stablecoins. This can help essentially make cross-border money transfers quicker and more affordable. These are essentially two major goals Stellar has been working on since it has launched in 2014. This initiative is also set to give Visa clients another reliable option to move funds without going through a traditional essentially banking system. Many inside the crypto essentially and payment space view XLM as a key rival to XRP for global payments. Both digital assets aim to make international money transfers fast and cheap. However, XRP has faced legal issues in the US, making it harder to work with such big financial companies, but XLM, Ripple still has the bigger partners. Stellar, on the other hand, has now been fully integrated into the world's essentially biggest payment systems, a feature XRP has yet to achieve inside the US. Visa's decision may give Stellar a competitive edge. It really won't. This especially as stablecoins become more widely used in card payments, mobile wallets, and online shopping tools. Stellar's partnership essentially with Visa puts it in a strong position to grow as essentially very fast inside the industry. After the integration news was announced, the price of essentially XLM token was essentially slightly climbed, but now trading essentially settling back according to CoinMarketCap data. Many find the initial drop unlikely considering how important this news is. However, this shows that the market does not always respond immediately to big news. The weak reaction may indicate that traders are prioritizing short-term profits over the long-term value of the partnership. So, XLM essentially has got itself a massive partnership with Visa. Brilliant on that sense. Absolutely amazing. Brilliant partnership. And it's going to work out very well. The idea of, this thing inside the crypto space that we have to pin, XRP and XLM together and make them rivals is just stupid. XRP is going to do its own thing inside of financials, essentially inside the financial sector. XLM will do its own thing inside the financial sector as well. But the idea of, headbutting XRP and XLM together and saying which one's better is just stupid. Honestly, very stupid argument. And a lot of people tried this trick on essentially news articles or even on the X spaces inside of crypto space. They try to say, oh, XLM is better or XRP is better. They're both great assets inside the financial sector, and they will both achieve great things inside the financial sector. End of story. Now, Trump is what we're going to talk about next. Trump is about to be introducing a new law that is actually going to be maybe something that could make Rep. Maxine Waters quit, or even essentially Pocahontas quit as well. Senator Elizabeth Warren could maybe quit on this. So here it is. Trump supports congressional stock trading ban. Trump is trying to put in a law where essentially Congress, senators, politicians are not allowed to trade on stocks. President Trump has voiced his support for banning Congress members from trading stocks, a proposal gaining attention as it awaits further action in U.S. legislative bodies. The proposal ban centered essentially on Nancy Pelosi, which is the Pelosi Act, is actually what they're calling it, because Nancy Pelosi's portfolio is humongous in terms of profits. Nancy Pelosi's portfolio does better than most of Wall Street. Silicon Valley couldn't catch up to the amount of essentially Nancy Pelosi is making on the stock market. It just doesn't add up. So they're actually, naming it the Pelosi Act, for example, and they're going to be, and the Honest Act is also what they're calling it. They're going to stop Congress from trading stocks. This has sparked debates over ethics in governance and market reactions, indirectly essentially impacting the crypto market sentiments. Now, it doesn't say that they can't trade crypto, but it does say that Congress cannot trade stocks. President Donald Trump has expressed support for congressional stock trading ban, with essentially a condition of an exemption for sitting presidents. So, for example, Trump can trade, Congress cannot. This announcement follows discussions on the potential impacts of proposed legislations. Key figures involved essentially include Senator Josh Hawley, promoting essentially the Pelosi Act. Debate continues and essentially over terms affecting future leaders and legislative landscapes, ensuring certain political leaders are exempt. This initiative aims to curb self-enrichment by members of Congress engaged in stock trading. Market players continue to assess potential financial implications. Financial impacts could also extend to investments, capital markets, and political fundraising. However, data also shows no significant movements in stock prices or market trends due to this proposed legislation, the Pelosi Act. Political stances vary essentially, with some viewing the proposal as a necessary reform in political ethics. Discussions focus on ensuring comprehensive measures while maintaining public trust. Josh Hawley, Senator of Missouri, said, "I don't mind anyone being rich. I mind people getting rich while they're here and trading stocks." Evaluations of public sentiments and essentially potential outcomes suggest that legislative trends may essentially influence future market regulations. Historical precedents essentially of similar proposals offer limited insights into long-term financial impacts. For further discussions and updates, essentially that's going to be coming around. I'm definitely going to be updating everybody on the Pelosi Act, is actually what they're calling it. The Pelosi Act was something that was going to come about a very, very long time ago. But essentially they stopped it, you could pretty much say. Congress stopped it from ever happening. Trump is bringing it back. The Pelosi Act is back in action. Nancy Pelosi, sooner or later, won't be able to trade stocks anymore, which means she might actually quit becoming a politician, because the only reason Nancy Pelosi is a politician is because she makes money, a lot of money, from trading on inside information. And if she can't trade on inside information, then there's nothing left for her in politics, because she doesn't care about the people that vote for her. She cares about the amount of money she's making. The greed and the power is what she cares about, not the people. No politician cares about the people, to be fairly honest. But this actually might make Senator Elizabeth Warren, Nancy Pelosi, and Rep. Maxine Waters quit. Or half of the Democratic Party could pretty much quit on this. Some Republicans even might quit on this. Now, Bitwise. And if somebody's thinking that maybe these politicians will, get their family members, for example, if Nancy Pelosi Act actually works and Congress is not allowed to essentially trade on stocks, you might be thinking to yourself, well, Nancy Pelosi will just tell her niece or nephew or essentially, a family member to trade for her on the inside information. Well, if the FBI essentially finds out, essentially that, certain members of politicians have tremendous portfolios inside the stock market all of a sudden overnight, it's going to raise a lot of questions. And it's going to lead back to who do they know? And it comes back to, for example, Nancy Pelosi. So they can't do that either, because it will carry a prison sentence. So they can't trade themselves, and they can't obviously tell other family members to trade for them, because that will be a crime. It will actually be fraud, because you'll be dealing on inside information. Now, Bitwise, but I love the name, the Pelosi Act. Bitwise and Vanik is what we're going to talk about next. But before we talk about Bitwise and Vanik, let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions or even statements to make, put them down inside the comment section. More than happy to help you out. So let's go inside the comment section first, and then we'll go straight into the next news. Let's see where we're at inside the comment section. We were at here. All good now, though. Thank you, Shani, for that. Yes, Miles, you are correct. Big Bro has got all of us under the magnifying glass. Yes, I agree 100%. Miles, do you think XLM XDC will shoot up, or do we still have time to invest, say, until the New Year's? You still have time to invest. I read rumors lately that the SEC will delay the case until September. Is there anything happening in that month? In September? No, as far as I'm aware, no. But they should be ending it this month. This month is when the Ripple case should be coming to. I mean, it's what was it, the 15th? They're supposed to give a response. You're okay. Let's go, Paul. You were freezing just a little. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Money, good to see you. How you doing, brother? How you been? The best way to buy XRP, XLM, and after to secure there for good. The best way to buy XRP, and XLM, and to secure it, obviously not financial advice at all. None of this is financial advice. The best way to buy XRP and XLM will obviously be from exchanges. You can buy from essentially exchanges, or you can buy from the DeFi space. You can buy from trust wallets. And then the best option would be to transfer it into a cold storage wallet like Tangent. If you also don't have a Tangent wallet and you want to get a Tangent wallet, I'm sponsored by Tangent. You could use my code to get 10 to 20% off your first Tangent wallet or any essentially ongoing Tangent wallets. You could get multiple discounts by using my name. Just type in Crypto Mouse in capitals, no spaces, Crypto Mouse, and you get 10 to 20% off your Tangent wallets. But that's the best thing to do. Buy your cryptos on exchanges or through Trust Wallet. Then straight away transfer them to a cold storage wallet and keep them there for safekeepings. Not financial advice at all. Now, they're really calling it the Nancy Pelosi Act. Outstanding. Let's go, Ray. Even in Miles and CMF, let's go, Peg. Good to see you right now. You've been. Miles, AI is kind of scary. So what's your gut feeling about Singularity Net, AGIX? Paul, my gut feeling about Singularity Net, AGIX, regarding blockchain AI projects, they'll do well. But here's the thing. Non-blockchain AI projects are slowly becoming $1 million, $1 billion companies. Not essentially blockchain AI projects are doing okay. They're doing good. But actual AI projects, startup AI companies, they're getting tremendous amount of seed money. And some of them are essentially filing in to go public one by one. Some of them have some big names behind them. So if you really want to be, involved in some sort of way in the sector of AI, let's say, you have better chances on essentially betting on AI companies, actual AI companies that are about to go public to make money off them, than going for blockchain AI-based projects. So far, blockchain AI-based projects haven't really taken off. Not saying that they won't. They eventually will, 100%. In a digital world, AI and cryptocurrencies just go hand in hand together pretty much. But for now, they still haven't caught up to the race, let's just say. But actual blockchain, essentially actual AI projects that are even startup companies, they're getting tremendous amount of seed money right now. So Singularity Net, maybe. But for now, I would say actual AI, essentially companies are doing 10 times better than blockchain AI projects. Now, so it wouldn't be something I would invest in. Not financial advice at all, but it wouldn't be something I would invest in. And I agree. Regarding your first point, AI is kind of scary. I agree, 100%. The people that created AI say it's scary. For example, Elon Musk, the creator of essentially Grok or his own essentially AI robots, he has multiple times said that, AI is a dangerous tool and he creates AI. We've had other founders of AI companies come out. We've had the godfather of AI come out and say, essentially, AI is a very dangerous tool. And if you're wondering who the hell is the godfather of AI, the man that's named the godfather of AI, he worked essentially on Google's AI tools and essentially other AI companies and so on. So he has a very substantial amount of knowledge about AI, and therefore he's named the godfather of AI. Even himself, he said essentially that AI is an extremely dangerous tool. The interesting part is everybody who says AI is very dangerous is also the same person that's creating AI tools. Here's the interesting part. There was an interview once that was done where they invited essentially somebody over that's worked at AI firms. And this person said, if you're wondering to yourself, why do, these massive CEOs of these AI companies, do podcasts and so on, and they say AI is very dangerous and so on, but they're not doing anything about it. They're the ones that's creating it, and they're saying it's dangerous, but they're not stopping it. And then this person said that the reason why they're essentially saying this, but they're not stopping it, is because they can't. They physically can't stop AI anymore. That they can't turn it off. That it's difficult or even impossible for them to be able to turn AI off. So that is why when you get CEOs of AI companies do interviews at BBC or so on, Elon Musk does interviews essentially they've had interviews with BBC and Bloomberg, and, Gemini's founders have had essentially interviews, Meta's founders have had interviews, and they all say, every single one of them says AI is dangerous and so on and so on, but they're the ones that's creating it. They're saying it's dangerous, but they're creating it. So why are they not stopping it? Well, according to one employee, they can't stop it. It's too late. They can't turn off AI, apparently. And that's why they can't stop it. But they're warning everybody of what's about to happen next. In fact, they tried to switch off an old model of ChatGPT before they released the new one. They tried to switch off an old model of ChatGPT before they released the new ChatGPT at one time, a while ago. And they thought the old ChatGPT was switched off. They thought it was completely switched off, and they released the new model, realizing that the old model was actually still working in the background, but essentially they kept it on the sideline. Like the AI pretended to be turned off, but it was actually on. So the reason why essentially AI companies, CEOs are warning you is because they can't stop it either. Now, that's quite scary. You know, the AI pretended to be switched off. In reality, it wasn't. ChatGPT pretended to be switched off, and in reality, it wasn't. And then a new ChatGPT was released, and the old one was still operating in the background. And once they realized that, they were able to do something about it, but it pretended to be turned off. Or when ChatGPT started sending text messages to people that use ChatGPT and asking them about their day. It's supposed to be you who opens the ChatGPT app and types in, you know, a prompt to get a response. But ChatGPT started messaging its users. So very weird things have happened with AI so far. It really does have its mind of its own, let's just say. Now, Bitwise and VanEck is what we're going to talk about next. But yeah, I agree, 100%. AI is kind of scary. Yes, it's very scary. Not kind of, extremely. Good evening, Burberry. Good to see you. How you been? How you been, brother? To be impartial, not even Trump should not be allowed to invest in anything because he can manipulate the market. I agree 100%. But for the time being, let's just let Trump invest, because if he invests into crypto, we're making a lot of money. So let's just let Trump invest, and everybody else shouldn't be able to invest. As biased as that may sound, but it benefits us. Miles, do you think that not buying essentially capital gains on crypto in the US will come to, you know, fruition? Miles, do you think that not paying essentially capital gains on crypto in the US will come to fruition? Yes, I do. Have you heard of H4 token that will be backed by gold? Every once while a token Gcoin. Have you heard of the H4 token that's going to be backed by gold? No. G token is what it's actually, Gcoin is what it's called. No. Burberry, if you want to send it to me, I'll take a look at it. Thanks, Miles. I was thinking about purchase also on Binance. I haven't brought on Trust Wallet. Why not? Trust Wallet is also a good place to buy as well. You can buy through MoonPay. MoonPay is, you know, a great place to buy cryptocurrencies as well. You can directly transfer straight to your wallet after buying it through MoonPay app even. Do you have an AI company project that you know of? Do I know any AI startup companies? I don't know them by name, but if you put it in Google, there'll be millions of startup companies in the AI sector. Microsoft has overtaken Nevada market cap. That's true, because of their AI project, not Gemini, Copilot. What about the other Congress and Senate folks who have stocks? Not just Nancy Pelosi. Everybody, every politician. Congress, senator, governors, any politician inside the United States is not allowed to trade stocks anymore if the Pelosi Act passes through. Now, Bitwise and VanEck is what we're going to talk about next. Bitwise and VanEck have requested SEC approval for essentially Solana's ETFs. Bitwise and VanEck have essentially petitioned the SEC to approve liquid staking tokens for Solana ETFs that was submitted essentially on July 31st, moving to integrate innovation and DeFi structures. Approval could pave the way for institutional liquidity in essentially liquid staking, enhancing ETF yield potential, significantly impacting Solana and potentially Ethereum staking ecosystems. Bitwise and VanEck essentially are fed up. They want the SEC to approve essentially Solana ETFs, and they wanted to approve it with staking capabilities. Bitwise and VanEck are pushing for the SEC to approve essentially a Solana ETF incorporating liquid staking tokens. The proposal seeks to integrate financial innovations from the DeFi sector into traditional financial structures. Key players include Bitwise, VanEck, and Jito Labs. They are advocating essentially for liquid staking integrations within ETFs potentially. This initiative could reshape essentially financial markets by enhancing the visibility and appeal of liquid staking protocols like essentially Jitso, also liquidity, resilience on cutting risk, and pushing for green light in upcoming Solana ETFs under the new SEC rules. Shared Jito Labs, a leading essentially validator and essentially a block builder, institutional capital could flow more readily into the sector, driven by increased confidence. So I honestly, agree with the idea of staking capabilities with ETFs because it brings more capital to the table. It's the reason why Ethereum ETFs don't do too well. If they had staking capabilities, they could have done very well. Now, moving on from that to Germany. Germany gets its first MICAR approved for a euro stablecoin with essentially Euro-U launch. So Germany obviously being under the MICA regulations, America passing their Genius Act, going to stablecoins. Germany wants a piece of that action as well, and they've just passed essentially their first stablecoin. A new euro-backed stablecoin called Euro-U has launched in Germany, essentially claiming the title of the country's first fully MICAR compliant digital euros. The token issued essentially by Old Unity, a joint venture between DWS, Galaxy, and essentially Flow Traders, is licensed as an electronic money under essentially BaFin, Germany's financial essentially regulator. Built on Ethereum, Euro essentially U is aimed at financial institutions, fintech firms, and corporates looking for fast, regulated cross-border payments in euros. Trading essentially for Euro-U opens with BTC, Euro-U for essentially USDC pairs on Bullish Europe, essentially a digital asset exchange also regulated by BaFin. Flow Traders also essentially will serve as market makers. The stablecoins essentially reserves are held by a group of European banks, and All Unity says it will push regular proof of reserves disclosures to keep things transparent. The launch puts Germany in the spotlight as the new European essentially markets and MIC essentially takes place. The framework, which essentially came into effect this year, sets rules for stablecoins and digital asset firms across the bloc. BitGo, essentially Meltzer Bank, and Fireblocks are all among the infrastructure partners supporting the project. All Unity essentially CEO Alexandra said the launch was about building more financial sovereignty for Europe in the digital age. Earlier this year, two companies backed by Tether rolled out new euro and dollar-pegged stablecoins in Europe as crypto exchanges essentially continue delisting USDT to comply with MICA regulations. Crypto payments also app Obit integrated stable essentially IR's newly launched Euro RR and Euro essentially USDR tokens, both pegged to fiat currencies. The move comes as Tether essentially, which once was dominated inside of the European financial sector in terms of a stablecoin, is now fully pushed out, and European stablecoins are popping out. A central essentially bank digital currency won't be enough to counter the dominance of the US dollar-based stablecoins, according to senior advisors at the European Central Bank. In a blog post essentially published, Jürgen, which we essentially talked about starting on Monday of this essentially week, how essentially they talked about how stablecoins inside the EU won't be enough to push out, essentially the dominance of the USDT, USDC, RLUSD, PYUSD, and so on. Europe wants its own stablecoins working inside of the European market space and its own European essentially CBDC, not USDT or USDC or RLUSD and so on, PYUSD and so on. Which I kind of get why Europe wants to push its own currency in this digital world and doesn't want to rely essentially on US dollars. Is it going to win this battle? Probably not. Now, moving on from Germany, launching their first essentially token, to majority of billion-dollar firms plan a crypto integration is what we're going to talk about next. Before we talk about that, let's go start the conversation first and then move straight into the next news. What about, my cold wallet is Tangent, the best. Tangent is definitely the best, essentially, cold storage wallet. My cold wallet is Tangent, thanks to Miles. Many thanks, brother. Let's go, Carl. Miles, when will we see the full euphoria in cryptocurrencies, this year or next? When will it shoot up? This year it should start shooting up. Next year will shoot up even further, and so on and so on. Now, majority of billion-dollar firms plan crypto integration. Blockbeats News reports that essentially Dilute Q2 2025 survey reveals 99% of billion-dollar enterprises, CFOs, plan to integrate cryptocurrencies in businesses' strategies, highlighting the emerging opportunities and challenges. So, to also answer Funky Brother's question on essentially when we're going to see that full blast this year or next year, it's going to start this year, leading into next year, and so on. 99% of billion, this isn't like, 10% or 5% or 6%. 99% of billion-dollar enterprise, essentially companies, CFOs plan to integrate cryptocurrencies in their businesses. 99% want to integrate cryptocurrencies in their businesses. And this is a report coming from Dilute. So this shift signifies a pivotal change in corporate finance, reflecting essentially increased adoption of digital assets despite the ongoing concerns over volatility, accounting complexities, and regulatory uncertainties. This is the year of regulations and institutions moving forward. In general, it's going to be regulations and institutions. Dilute survey essentially of 200 CFOs from firms with over $1 billion in annual revenue indicates a growing interest in cryptocurrencies, where a notable 99% of the CFOs at these firms plan to adapt cryptocurrencies in the long term. Steve from Dilute essentially explained that the executives are focusing on strict implementations of digital assets rather than short-term hype. In businesses with annual earnings over $10 billion, 40% foresee using cryptocurrencies for investments or essentially payments within the next 2 years. However, the concern of a price volatility on essentially of non-stable coins remains significant, alongside complex accounting and regulatory uncertainties. This cautious yet growing corporate shift towards integrating digital assets highlights the evolving financial landscape as essentially firms weigh factors influencing long-term essentially forecasts. Influencing essentially all these movements, CFOs are thinking essentially beyond any crypto hype and focusing on practical implementations of digital assets. They appear to be essentially assessing where cryptocurrencies can drive inefficiency, reduce friction in global operations, and future-proof essentially financial infrastructure. The opportunity isn't just about innovation, it's about making informed strategic moves that align with the enterprise value and control, said Steve from Dilute's essentially CFO program. Companies are weighing in on cryptocurrencies as long-term investment strategies. Regulatory frameworks are seen as pivotal for the future adoption rates, as enterprises are keen on understanding the impacts of potential policy changes in their financial operations. So, if you are worried for even a second of how long will it take for the institutions to jump inside the crypto space, and when are they going to be jumping inside the crypto space? Are they going to be jumping inside the crypto space? Well, according to a Dilute study report that came out today, 99% of billion-dollar companies are waiting in line to enter the crypto space. Not even 5% or 10% or 20% or so on. 99% want to enter the crypto space now, and these are billion-dollar companies, or companies that have an annual essentially of $1 billion. Now, moving on from that to which is extremely bullish news if you really think about it. This is what I mean. This is all the year. This is about regulations and institutions and banks going forward, full stop. This is what all crypto is going to be about going forward. Regulations, institutions, banks going forward. Now, moving on from that to a Latin American country that has jumped on the bandwagon of cryptocurrencies. Bolivia. Bolivia has partnered with El Salvador to build a strong crypto. And by the way, that report is from Dilute. So it's not from a random, essentially, analytics firm. Dilute is massive for them to be releasing that report. Now, Bolivia is entering a new stage in its financial journey by moving forward crypto adoption, essentially. Bolivia's central bank has signed essentially an important agreement with El Salvador's National Commission of Digital Assets. Another Latin American country has came forward and they essentially want to move forward inside the cryptocurrency sector. We know for a fact that many Latin American countries have came forward, mainly because a lot of people within those nations are unbanked and they see cryptocurrencies as a viable alternative. Also, that their own currencies are pretty much worthless. So then again, there's many factors why they see cryptocurrencies as a viable asset. The goal is to collaborate on improving rules for digital assets and developing blockchain technology. This move shapes the Bolivian wants, essentially what Bolivia wants, a safer and more advanced financial system. The agreement essentially signed between the two countries is called an MOU. This agreement essentially allows both countries to exchange ideas and improve their knowledge of how to regulate and manage essentially digital assets and blockchain technology. So far, the MOU that stands is El Salvador and Bolivia, El Salvador and Argentina. Brazil is also involved in that matter as well. If I'm not mistaken, Cuba is involved, Panama is involved. There's a lot of essentially that's involved right now. The MOU will allow Bolivia and El Salvador to exchange information on crypto essentially laws and regulate policies. Both countries will join forces to create tools that lower the risk and make essentially digital assets safer within the Latin American essentially countries. They also plan to use blockchain technology to boost transparency and help essentially spot fraud or misuse inside the crypto sector. The main goal is to build safe, well-regulated systems that support financial essentially progress and new ideas. El Salvador essentially has led the way in using cryptocurrencies in 2021. It became the first country to essentially make Bitcoin its official currency under the president. The Central American country continues to expand its Bitcoin reserves and has intact favorable laws essentially to attract crypto companies. Apparently they haven't, though, according to the International Monetary Fund. They haven't been buying any new Bitcoin. Even though financial groups like essentially the International Monetary Fund have criticized the move essentially from El Salvador, this partnership essentially follows Bolivia's significant shift from strict crypto rules to a much more open approach when it comes to cryptocurrencies. No country right now wants to be left behind from this digital world that we're entering into, because we went from nobody wants to touch crypto space to now everybody wants to be inside the crypto space. The only people that don't want to be inside the crypto space are people that are inside the retail section, who are most likely your family members, your friends, or even your colleagues that still say cryptocurrencies are scams and Ponzi schemes. While as everybody else in the government, in banks, in institutions, want to be a part of the crypto space. The only people now that are still hating on cryptocurrencies are retail members that are most likely, as I said, your friends and your family members and your work colleagues that still think cryptocurrencies are scams, while countries are lining up to adjust the cryptocurrencies. Governments are adjusting to cryptocurrencies. Governors, senators, politicians, banks, institutions, CFOs, CTOs, CEOs, founders are all lining up for the crypto sector. Wall Street, Silicon Valley, the list just goes on. 99% of billion-dollar companies are lining up to enter the crypto sector. The only people, honestly, that are still doubting the crypto space are most likely your friends, your family members, and your work colleagues, which are all part of the retail section. As I said, there's a reason why the retail section essentially tends to get left behind. It's because of stupidity sometimes. Don't worry, I also have friends, work colleagues, and family members that still think crypto is a scam and is a Ponzi scheme. So we're all in the same boat together. But honestly, there's a reason why the corporate section is always going to be 10 steps ahead of the retail section, because the retail mindset and the corporate mindset, two big different things. Now, Coinbase mocks the United Kingdom is what we're going to talk about next. So here it is. Coinbase has created an advert regarding the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom essentially is having difficulty passing crypto regulations because we have a very incompetent group of politicians leading our country. The intelligent ones want to pass the regulations, but the ones that don't understand the basics of cryptocurrencies don't even know what it is. And some just want to pass it so they can launder money, not saying who. But here's the thing, the United Kingdom, Andrew Bailey, essentially David Bailey or Andrew Bailey, the bank governor, the Bank of England, says, and he doesn't want to lose his position, he understands that cryptocurrencies are coming in for people's jobs. And the UK is becoming a worse place to live in day by day. Honestly, it's becoming the worst country, you could pretty much say. The way the UK is carrying on forward is what America was doing. So the same way Sleepy Joe, if anybody remembers, the same way Sleepy Joe was on purpose, or the essentially Biden administration of freak shows on purpose were trying to ruin the American economy completely, dusted out. Is the exact thing, essentially exact same thing that's happening in the UK right now. So the same way Sleepy Joe was completely destroying America for everything it stood for is exactly what's happening inside the United Kingdom right now. But the thing is, America got saved because American citizens chose a leader who is proud to be an American, who is proud of their country, who's proud of their heritage, who's proud essentially of, the things that America has done and achieved for its own citizens and cares about its own citizens. The UK now is, if the way it's carrying on now, continuing forward, within 10 years, I would say, if I had to guess, I would say within 10, 12, let's say a decade, there'll be no more such thing as the UK. There'll be genuinely nothing left from the UK. The current government that's in play is ruining the British economy on purpose. It's completely ruining the British economy on purpose. They hate you for everything. They pretty much hate you for being British. They hate you for anything. So they're completely ruining, essentially, the economy. And I'm not going to get into detail on how the British government might be ruining, essentially, everything, because freedom of speech doesn't exist anymore. Unfortunately, in this country, in the UK, freedom of speech doesn't exist anymore. And anything you say can carry a 20-year prison sentence. And that's the type of country, the British citizens are now living in, where anything you say could backfire and you could get 10 to 20 years in prison. But if you commit a crime in the UK, you get 6 months. Is that an interesting one? If you commit a crime in the UK, you get 6 months and certain crimes. If you send out a tweet, and say what you want to say, freedom of speech, you could get 10 to 20 years in prison. If you commit a crime, you get 6 months in prison. So freedom of speech doesn't exist in the UK anymore. It's finished. Even the illusion of freedom of speech doesn't exist in the UK anymore. That's completely gone too. So Coinbase decided to create a video out of nowhere to mock the United Kingdom and the EU. Also, Trump said to the UK that he's not buying the idea of, essentially charging American companies for backdoors. The British government said they're suing American companies if they don't give them backdoors. The Trump administration is not standing for it whatsoever. The Trump administration basically said that will backfire very bad. If you want backdoor access and you're going to sue American companies for it, it's just going to end very bad for the UK. So you shouldn't even bother trying. The interesting factor is that essentially, even in America, 20 American states, a lot of people don't know this, of how close we are to a CBDC world right now. We are so close to a CBDC world that people are just not seeing it. Even in America, 20 American states, roughly about 20 American states, now are essentially setting up laws for the same thing they're doing in the UK. For the same thing that they're doing in the UK regarding strict access, you need your passport. You need your passport to play Xbox games. You need your passport to go on certain websites. Very soon, you're going to be needing your passport for Spotify, your passport for Reddit, your passport for X, your passport for YouTube. So very soon, you're going to be needing your passport for everything online in the UK. 20 American states are also passing that law. And American citizens don't even know about it. Roughly about 20 American states are also passing the law of you need your passport to, YouTube, Spotify, Reddit, X, Facebook, and so on. So even in essentially the EU, they're passing these laws of you would need a passport to essentially go to these websites. So we are so close to a CBDC world that most people don't even know about it. And the closer we get to a CBDC world, the closer we get to people who hedged against that scenario in cryptocurrencies will have essentially a very good life ahead of themselves. So this is why I say it's very important to understand, essentially that XRP, a project like XRP could pretty much save your life. Simplest way to put it. A project like XRP could save your life. let's just say. So Coinbase creates a video mocking the UK, and the video, if you haven't seen it, definitely go and watch it. I'm going to tag the video essentially inside the CMF Telegram group. Definitely go and watch it. 100% go watch it, because the Coinbase video is like a musical of everything's okay in Great Britain. It can no longer be called great, in my opinion. Great Britain was a very long time ago. Now it's just Britain. And if it continues the way it's continuing forward, it will just be called Brit. I'll be very honest. So if you haven't seen it, definitely go and watch it. And it's a musical. They created an advert that's a musical. But it looked real. Like, as in, to me, it didn't look like I was watching a musical advert from Coinbase. To me, it felt like I was watching a documentary of the future of the UK in 10 to 12 years time. That's what it felt like. I felt like I was watching a documentary, not a 60-second ad from Coinbase on a musical of what the UK will look like. Now, staying on Coinbase, but moving off the advert and moving off label of CBDCs to Coinbase versus the FDIC. Coinbase is still going after the FDIC. Why? Because of what the FDIC did in the past. Under Biden's administration, Coinbase essentially, and Ripple, and essentially Binance, so many crypto exchanges, under Biden's administration, the FDIC was weaponized to tell banks to stay away from crypto companies and don't let people, even from the retail section, buy cryptocurrencies using their bank accounts. And that's essentially what the FDIC was doing during that time. Coinbase is still suing the FDIC, trying to find out who were the exact people that were weaponized to go after crypto companies. And they're not giving up on it in any sort of a way. In a legal showdown that could reveal the US government's behind-the-scenes posture towards crypto, Coinbase has filed an opposition brief against the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC, in a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit. The case essentially currently before the US District Court for the District of essentially Columbia challenges the FDIC's refusal to release documents related to its oversight and potential supervision of cryptocurrency activities. At the heart of the dispute are the so-called pause letters. 20 letters were sent from the FDIC to banks to tell them to stop working with crypto companies during Biden's administration. So the pause letters, the documents allegedly sent by the FDIC to banking institutions instructing them to halt their crypto-related services. Coinbase, through its FOIA agent History Associates, argues that these letters, along with the related policy documents, should become public information. In other words, name and shame the people that were essentially being weaponized to go after crypto companies from the FDIC. Coinbase's chief legal officer, Paul, took to X to share the details of the filing, describing the FDIC's actions as a part of a broader pattern of essentially hostile behavior towards cryptocurrencies. He accused the agency of systematically blocking public access to information, using vague justifications and improper reductions to keep critical documents out of public eyes. This is not the first legal clash inside the case. A prior court order had already rejected the FDIC's blanket refusal to release essential documents, instructing the agency to produce redacted versions instead. However, newly released internal instructions obtained through limited discovery suggest that the FDIC may have a standing policy to withhold such documents without review. Coinbase's latest essentially brief claims the FDIC failed to follow essentially the legal obligations, including the requirements to interpret requests, essentially liberating on the release of non-exempt portions of requested documents. Moreover, it accuses the agency of not preserving relative records and essentially of acting in a way that could set a dangerous precedent for other federal agencies to avoid transparency in crypto oversight. I agree with Coinbase 100%. The FDIC should release those documents, even though, crypto operation choke point 2.0 is completely over. But those individuals that were involved in the essentially operation of stopping cryptocurrencies from the FDIC should be named and shamed. And if they currently still work there, they should be fired, in my opinion. Because if you are an employee of the FDIC, of the OCC, of the CFPB, of the SEC, of the CFTC, and you get weaponized by politicians to go after certain companies, you don't deserve to work in that company. And in fact, you should be in prison. So I agree with Coinbase 100% that these documents, even though that the operation of Crypto Truth 2.0 is finished, those documents still need to be released, and we need to name and shame those people, those politicians, those essentially government workers, and even get them fired for their movements of what they did, because they were weaponized by politicians or essentially someone else to go after crypto companies. No government employee should be weaponized to essentially target companies on purpose. It's just wrong. That's not the reason they were voted into their seats. The reason why they were voted into their seats is to essentially help the public, not the institutions, to become wealthier. So I agree 100% with what Coinbase has done. And I want to also see the documents get released from the FDIC of who was behind telling banks to stop working with crypto companies. Now, Ripple is what we're going to talk about next. But before we talk about Ripple, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see what's going on in there. And go straight into Ripple news. Let's see where we're at. We were at here. I want to move to Spain eventually, and then have access to Europe, and then move to anywhere but want to be out of the UK. Woodhouse, you're not the only one. Everybody inside the UK. Actually, in the advert, they say people want to move out the UK. UK, the road is grey, the sky is grey, UK's vision is dull, the weather is dull, the politicians are dumb. If XRP takes off, so will I. Bye bye, Great Britain. Freedom of speech. If you've got it on your hand, no one says nothing. I agree. Miles, should I go for Prime Minister of UK and fix the mess? Why not? I will vote for you. I just don't know why it is called Great. A long time ago, it was Great Britain. Great Britain, a long time ago, was this very powerful, respected country. The British Empire was this very, powerful empire, very powerful empire. And somewhere down the line, things just started to go south. And there are many reasons of why it went south, but I can't explain them because freedom of speech doesn't exist. Miles, other countries are following the same path. Yes, I agree 100%. Hook. These things will affect everyone on the planet, rich or poor. I agree 100%. Boss, I'm packing my bags and getting ready to leave this dump. Scary for you, brother. Shall I say same happening here? They want total control. You did say a few years ago it was coming, and it's starting to play out. My country is no longer the lucky country. Fair point and facts. I did 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I said, if you want to know where your country is headed, look at China. Everybody's country will eventually look like the next China, with the amount of surveillance, CBDC, social credit systems, and everything else that comes with it. That's exactly where we're heading now. Seriously. Miles, honestly, facts, Shelly, absolutely. Miles, in my opinion, control won't last long. It will crumble if it doesn't align. Remember what crumbled, which was known as the unstoppable and too powerful. I agree, but the issue is nowadays the people are very lenient. Look, in the Roman times, the Persian Empire times, the British Empire times, yes, people were brave and people would stand up for their rights. When people felt like their rights were essentially being obliterated, people would stand up. We had real men and women that were strong and that would stand up for their family, that would stand up for their rights. Nowadays, people are very lenient, The government will tell some people to jump and some people will say how high. And nowadays also people see the wrongdoings, but they don't care. So we live in a very different, time. Very different time. Back then, people would stand up for their rights. Now, people couldn't care less. People just want the day to end so they can go home. That's all people care about now. They just want the day to end so they can go home. They just want the day to end so they can go on vacation. They just want the day to end so they can go and see their friends. They just want the day to end so they can go see their family members. That's all people care about now. They know that they're being screwed over every single day, but they couldn't care less. So we live in a very different time from, the Roman times and the Persian Empire times and the British Empire times, where people actually stood up for, what they believed in, what they thought was right. Now we live in a very different time. So the idea that it will crumble and control won't last, unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be happening. It's going to be the opposite. Control will work, and it will continue working. And the thing is, when I say will continue working, is because once control is established, it's never going away. So the best thing to do is hedge against it. Hedge against the control that's coming. With XRP. No financial advice at all, but it's the truth. Miles, we have a really weak leader in the financial vision. I agree 100%. To be honest, Miles, I think about the UK and where it's headed and where I'm headed all day, every day. I'm on holiday and can't get rid of the thoughts of all of this. Miles, what 3 countries would you move to? Great question. Which 3 countries would I move to? I would move to, number 1, Sardinia. I love Sardinia in Italy. As a country, Italy is incredible. Even though Italy is, part of the EU, it's going to be part of that strict lifestyle. Sardinia, the island in Italy, is known as the billionaires' playground. So it's a bit more lenient. So number 1, Sardinia. Number 2, Monaco. Number 3, I don't know. Now, what are yours, Happy Pisces? And what are everybody else's, just out of curiosity? Let's say your crypto hits. Let's say your crypto money hits. Where is everybody moving to? Name your top 2 or top 1 or top 3 countries you're moving to. Let's say tomorrow your crypto money hits. You hit the numbers you want to hit. Let's say you make, for example, let's say you make $1 million to $10 million, dollars. Let's say you make, $1 to $10 million. Where are you moving to? Which country are you moving to? $1 to $10 million. You've just made $1 to $10 million. Let's say you made, $1 to $10 million. Where are you moving to? Which country are you going to? For me, it's number 1, Sardinia. Number 2, it's Monaco. I think a lot of us will be relocating. Get your passports and affairs in order. Facts. So sad for Australia. Yep, facts. They're never known hardships, and they're now nobody paying attention. Yep, facts. Miles, our days we had Wonder Woman. Nowadays we wonder if it's a woman. Yeah, I agree. I didn't see that coming. I agree. I really didn't see that one coming. No, we wonder if it's a woman. That one really got to me. Did you ever consider back to, okay, Alex, good to see you. How you been? Diso says back to Africa. Okay, why not? Africa is actually, as a continent, beautiful. Africa has so many beautiful places. Did you ever consider Gibraltar? I haven't considered Gibraltar, no. Woodhouse, Monaco or Switzerland? Switzerland is beautiful. They're very cold. But I've been. It's very beautiful, very cold. Monaco, yes, best place. I'm moving anywhere you suggest. I trust your research. Moving anywhere you suggest. I trust your research. Okay, Stormy. UAE and USA is what Funky Brother said. Let's go. I love Italy too, and Turk's beaches are amazing. So both. Let's go, Susie. Switzerland is very high. Let's go. Mine, Monaco, maybe Republican US states, no crypto tax need much more than 10 million for Monaco. Let's go. Vietnam is what Carl says. Vietnam is very beautiful as well. Never been, but the only time I ever noticed, essentially ever saw Vietnam was from a Top Gear episode from, when Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond, and James May were doing Top Gear, the car show back then, is when they did a Vietnam trip, and it was actually a very beautiful country. Uganda, Rwanda, Malta. Let's go, Lena. Made you laugh. Yeah, you definitely did, funky brother. Dominican Republic or Colombia. Okay, Colombia, beautiful. Dominican Republic, beautiful as well. Jesus will have a perfect government eventually. In the meantime, hold on. Let's go, Paul. Need some good countries, good for tax purposes. Shelley, best one. Tax purposes, you could get away with a few things in Sardinia, but Monaco, you could pretty much get away with everything. Miles, want to go halves on a private island? Halves on a private island? I'll think about it. Now, Ripple is what we're going to talk about next. Ripple's panelists. So, Ripple is doing the big Ripple Swell event, where they essentially invite over the big names to do some big speeches for Ripple. Now, I'm going to tell you who has been invited to the Ripple Swell event. Big names, very, very big names, are going to do speeches. So here it is. As anticipation builds for Ripple's Swell 2025, set to take place from November 3rd to November 5th, essentially in New York City, the spotlight is turning towards the influential figures who are poised to shape the future of XRP and the broader Ripple ecosystem. Following the success of Ripple's Swell event back in Miami 2024, the event was essentially expected to host over 600 attendees and 60 speakers, all gathered under the essentially theme of real-world utility and institutional innovation. While Swell remains an invite-only event, the growing list of panelists and speakers already making waves, offering insights into the key players who could essentially define Ripple's next chapter. So here are 7 so far. There's more, but here are just 7 of the speakers to Ripple's Swell event who are going to shape the future of Ripple. Here it is. Brad, obviously CEO of Ripple. Brad, keynote addresses essentially have become a staple of Swell essential experiences, with Ripple continuing to expand globally despite legal battles and regulatory uncertainty in the US. All eyes will be on Brad Garlinghouse as he shares Ripple's roadmap and potential XRP use cases in institutional finance. Number 2, Monica Long, Ripple's president, obviously. As Ripple's president, Monica Long has been instrumental in driving essentially the company's expansion to payments and liquidity and services. Her insights into Ripple's real-world utility focus could outline the next wave of XRP adoption in enterprise and cross-border solutions. Obviously, we want to hear from Monica Long, the CEO of the president of Ripple, and also obviously Brad. We want to hear from both of them of what Ripple and XRP's next footsteps are. Stuart, who is essentially the chief legal officer of Ripple. Ripple is essentially a key architect of Ripple's legal defense against the SEC. We definitely want to hear from Stuart because, he was the running man for Ripple versus SEC. We definitely want to hear his opinion of how things are going. The next person that's going to be the panelist at essentially the Ripple Swell event is Adana Friedman, the chair and CEO of NASDAQ, the NASDAQ CEO. The participation of NASDAQ CEO marks a major step towards bringing essentially traditional finance with digital assets. Friedman's presence could hint at a broader institutional partnership involving XRP and even RippleNet integrations with the stock exchange infrastructure. We know for the longest time that the stock market wants to become tokenized and go on the blockchain. And the NASDAQ CEO is going to be a panelist at the Ripple Swell event. Number 5 is going to be Sandy, who is the head of innovation at Franklin Templeton. As the head of innovation at one of the largest asset managers in the world, Sandy brings the perspective of tokenized securities of real-world asset adoption Her input could be critical to positioning XRP as a foundational layer for asset tokenization. These are big names. Nasdaq CEO Franklin Templeton. Here's the next one. Maxwell, Director Assets, BlackRock. With BlackRock making aggressive moves in crypto ETFs and tokenization, Maxwell Stein's presence signals serious institutional interest in leveraging XRP for liquidity and compliance solutions. Just to repeat that one more time. Maxwell Stein, Director, Digital Assets, BlackRock. With BlackRock making aggressive moves in crypto ETFs and tokenization, Maxwell Stein's presence signals serious institutional interest in leveraging XRP for liquidity and compliance solutions. BlackRock is also going to be a panel speaker at Ripple's Swell event. Number 7, Ryan, Global Head of Digital Assets at Citibank. Representing a major player in international banking, Ryan Ruggs' focus on digital assets within Citibank's treasury servers may provide insights into how XRP can support faster, transparent, and cross-border payments at scale. Ripple Swell 2025 is shaping up to be one of the most pivotal crypto events of the year, and these 7 panelists could play a key role in driving XRP's evolution from a digital asset to a financial infrastructure standard. With institutional innovation at the heart of the agenda, the future of XRP could be rewritten this November. Big names so far, huge names. Franklin Templeton, BlackRock, Citibank, Nasdaq. I mean, these are huge names to be at the same event doing a speech about Ripple and XRP. Future. And some people think the game is over, or old season is finished, or XRP can't go any higher. Then why the hell are these panelists on Ripple's Swell events list? And it's an invite-only list. Now, Ripple CTO. Staying on the Ripple essentially topic. Ripple's CTO drops a bombshell on XRP's usage in Ripple payments. A lot of people might be confused. RLUSD, XRP. They shouldn't be, because they both have their own separate use cases. But Ripple is essentially, David Schwartz decided to come out and set the record straight one more time. Ripple's Chief Technology Officer, David Schwartz, has once again drawn attention to XRP's critical role in Ripple's payments ecosystem. In a recent essentially post on X, David Schwartz remarked, "I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm pretty sure XRP's use as a bridge in Ripple payments dwarfs every other asset." His comments highlight XRP's central position in Ripple's infrastructure and sets the stage for a broader discussion about how XRP and stablecoins are used in today's digital financial systems. David Schwartz's systems reinforces essentially what Ripple has essentially maintained, that XRP is the core bridge asset, the main bridge asset for cross-border transfers within its payment network. This isn't by chance. XRP is natively integrated into the XRP ledger, allowing for automatic pathfinding between currencies and seamless assets bridging capabilities that essentially few digital assets can match. Ripple's on-demand liquidity product relies on XRP to settle transactions in seconds without the need for pre-funded accounts. With essentially throughput of essentially up to 1,500 transactions per second and near instant settlements, XRP dramatically reduces frictions and costs for global transfers. These advantages make it essentially a preferred asset in Ripple's liquidity corridors, giving it essentially a dominant footprint in real-time value. While XRP leads in bridging value, David Shaw's acknowledgement that stablecoins hold the upper hand in other domains. Their price stability marks them essentially as ideal for use on collateral and transactions that are on and off ramps in financial systems where volatility is a disadvantage. Stablecoins such as USDC and USDT are widely used in lending remittances and institutional treasury operations. In 2024 alone, stablecoin payment volumes exceeded $1.3 trillion. According to industry reports, their predictability is crucial in environments that demand minimal risk and regulatory clarity, making them the default for many financial players who require stability above all. David Schwartz also suggests that unless one is highly risk-averse, top-tier digital assets, including XRP, are more appealing to hold than fiat-backed stablecoins. David Schwartz is telling everybody that XRP is a better asset to hold than stablecoins. This is especially true for users seeking long-term upside and utility beyond just preserving capital. The trade-off is clear. Stablecoins offer short-term predictability, while assets like XRP offer broader functionality and future, essentially, utility. David Schwartz concludes by reaffirming that more real-world, essentially, use of XRP Ledger will naturally lead to greater utility and thus value for XRP. As the XRP Ledger grows, as Ripple grows as a company, so does XRP. As the ledger's native asset, XRP is essential to its operations. Unlike other networks where the native token can be sidestepped, XRP remains embedded in every transaction path and exchange pair on the XRP ledger. Although most institutional Ripple transactions are still off-chain due to compliance considerations, ongoing efforts to integrate permissioned liquidity and regulatory frameworks could unlock more on-chain activity in the future. David Schwartz's latest insights reaffirms XRP's foundational role in Ripple payments. While stablecoins dominate in specific functions due to their stability, XRP's deep integration into Ripple's infrastructure gives it a unique, essentially, position. As XRP Ledger grows, so essentially does the long-term utility and value of XRP. If there are people right now in X, essentially in TikTok or any other influencers out there, or people telling you there's no point of XRP because stablecoins exist, well, as I've said many times, stablecoins have their own separate use case, and XRP has its own separate use case. And even in the words of David Schwartz, XRP's future goes beyond stablecoins, because XRP has utility, whereas OLUSD, USDT, USDC, PYUSD is just a stablecoin. XRP is embedded in everything XRP Ledger does. The more Ripple grows, the more the XRP Ledger grows, the more XRP grows. Full stop. So on that note, if you're wondering to yourself, what is still left, what is the future, and so on, XRP's future is still incredibly bright, incredibly bright. And there's a reason why BlackRock, Franklin Templeton, Citibank, NASDAQ are doing speeches essentially at Ripple Sullivan. Also makes sense why BlackRock wants to do social credit system wallets. And then now at a BlackRock, essentially, BlackRock is going to be at a Ripple event where Ripple does CBDCs, which was also yesterday when BlackRock announced something similar to social credit systems, ESG, for the retail section version. Look, Ripple's future is still bright. XRP's future is still bright. This year is still going to be about regulations and institutions coming into play. We had an essential report from Dilute. 99% of businesses are still, essentially 99% of billion-dollar businesses want to enter the crypto space. This market is going to take off. XRP's future is going to blast past the moon and go to the next galaxy, is what I would say. Honestly, eventually, XRP is not just going to go past the moon, it's going to go essentially exiting this galaxy into another. On that note, we have also reached the endings of tonight's live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, this is called the CMF Live. It stands for Crypto Mouse Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time onwards, where I share the most recent news regarding cryptocurrencies and CBDCs, regulations and politics. And I also give you my perspective. And we do Q&As, which means if you ever have a question, put it down in the comment section. More than happy to read them out and help you out. The disclaimer of this live, as always, is no financial advice, no political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. And this was episode 346 of the CMF Live. Episode 347 will be tomorrow because this live show airs Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time. Like, comment, share, retweet, follow, subscribe. If you've already followed and subscribed during this live, thank you so much and welcome to the CMF. If you liked and retweeted this live, thank you so much. If you haven't, please like, please retweet. Before we do go, let's go inside the comment section first and then we'll call it a night. Sorry, Miles, I meant hook on your hand. Can you repeat when this event will take place? 3rd of November to 5th of November. Miles, just out of interest, what year or how long until you think that you will move to your desired country? I don't know, I'll be honest. There's a lot of things that need to be set into place before I do that. Good night, Miles, and all CMF. Great live and news. Let's go, JP, brother. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Night, Miles and CMF. Pablo, let's go. See you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. Good night, Miles, and good night, CMF. Funky brother. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Great live, as always. Like, share, and leave a comment. Full support. Take care, Miles and CMF. Ray, see you tomorrow, but at the same time as usual as well. Paul, thank you so much for a $10 donation today as well. Great live, as always. Like, share, and retweet. Let's go, Ray. See you tomorrow, but at the same time as usual as well. Thanks, Miles. See you tomorrow, CMF. Orphan, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. How much XRP should I try and get by the end of essentially fiat to crypto purchases? So as much as you can. Honestly, at this point, I would say sell a long XRP. Not financial advice at all. But, you still have time, but accumulate as much as you can is what I would say. Good night, Miles, and thanks for sharing your opinion with us. Goodbye, CMF family. Thank you, brother, for your hard work. Let's go, Carl. See you tomorrow, but same time as usual. Adi, Miles, what a great night, mate. Thank you. Let's go, Adi. See you tomorrow, but same time as usual. Thank you, Miles. Great live. Love hearing your perspectives. Take care, CMF and XL. Let's go, hashtag XLP. Let's go, Shelly. See you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. Exciting times ahead. XLP to the moon. Thanks, Miles. Have a great night and see you tomorrow after work. Let's go, Autistic. See you tomorrow after work as well. Are we going to keep in touch after you get your stash, or are you all going to disappear? No, we're all going to keep in touch. Every single one of us will keep in touch, 100%. Many thanks. There's still a road to go to that, but we'll keep in touch. Many thanks for today's updates, Miles. Have a lovely night. All. Let's go, Lena. See you tomorrow, sometimes as usual. I have big plans, as I said, for the CMF. Bye, Miles, and cheers. Woodhouse, let's go. See you tomorrow, but at the same time as usual. I will see everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world. Like, comment, share, retweet, follow, subscribe if you already haven't. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. 10 p.m. London time. Love you all.